Welcome back to Trail Tales. In this video, we're going hiking in Cape Split Provincial Park, Nova Scotia. This 15-kilometer loop should take us about 4 hours in total, and the trailhead itself is a 90-minute drive from Halifax, so it's definitely a day trip option if you're staying in the city and want to get a healthy dose of nature. The trail starts from the ample, free-to-use car park, and from there quickly enters the woods. Despite this being the middle of August, there were still many muddy sections to negotiate, as well as uneven rocks and roots, so make sure you bring the right footwear. The route is well signposted with distance markers, so you don't need to rely on a GPS to navigate. Few options for you in terms of route. The first fork is just before the 1.5 kilometer mark. We turned right, taking the northern part of the loop, which follows the ridgeline, but this meant that we did the bulk of the climb at the start of the hike, leaving a more gentle return. But since we were deep in the forest, and since the trail also undulates quite a lot, we had no sense of how high we'd climbed. There were several signs for lookoffs along the route, and by the time we came across the first one, at the 2 kilometer mark, we'd gained some 200 meters of elevation. Our hopes for a reward for our efforts were dashed quite quickly when we reached it. The forest had reclaimed the view, and we could only see smudges of blue peeking through the foliage. It wasn't too long before we reached the second lookoff, which looks out over the Minas Basin. The wooden platform at this lookoff juts out over the edge of the cliff, and the view it offers was far more rewarding. The Minas Basin is adjacent to the Bay of Fundy, which is famed for having the highest tide of anywhere in the world at 16 meters. Minas Basin is a close competitor with a tidal height of 14 meters. Having taken in the view, we continued our journey back into the forest. The mud got deeper, and some of us regretted the footwear decisions we'd made. The canopy closed in on us, and we were cocooned, walking through a verdant, leafy tunnel. Some 20 minutes later, the forest suddenly ended, and we were at the tip of the cape. A refreshing, cool breeze blew in from the sea, and we took a lunch break, stopping to eat before exploring the headland. We spent a good 30 minutes exploring the tip of the peninsula. There are so many hidden views and things to see, it's well worth wandering to see what's there. Enormous difference in height between the high and low tides mean that a colossal volume of water rushes in and out of this basin twice a day with a powerful erosive force. Cape Split's many outcrops and formations are not quite as dramatic or as famous as the Bay of Fundy, but are noteworthy nonetheless. If you are interested in a longer day trip, Hopewell Rocks Provincial Park is a great place to see more of the marvelous work that the tide does. However, it is a 3-hour drive from Halifax each way. A word of warning: regardless of how high or low the tide appears when you are there, it is best to stay away from the coast. The tide comes in so rapidly and may leave you stranded or worse. It's much safer to admire it from a distance.
Oh my god.
For the return leg, we continued the loop and followed the trail along the southern side of the cape. This part of the trail was in need of some maintenance, as some inclement weather had brought down more than a few trees. Some had been cleared enough for us to get through, others meant we had to walk into the woods to get around. The next look-off offered views of Big Cove. With the tide way out, the beach looked enormous. The small boulders strewn across it spoke of the power that this water brings to bear against the cliffs below us, pummeling them and pulling rocks down into the sea. As we set forth into the forest, we stumbled across another felled tree in a path, which meant a minor detour.
It's clearly been fallen down for some time though, because the alternative trail is quite well worn in, but it looks like quite a roadblock.
30 more minutes marching through the woods, and we reached the next look-off, Lobster Hole. As you can see, the view was largely blocked by the forest foliage. By this point in the hike, we had gone through all the water we'd brought with us. Even through the thick canopy, the summer sun shone through and turned the forest floor into a sweatbox. Learn from our mistakes. Bring more water than you think you need.
Even though we're not in the sun, it's quite sweaty.
And finally, 4 hours after we'd set off, we arrived back at the car park, a little weary but much richer for the experience. In total, we hiked 15 kilometers and gained a total of 653 meters of elevation, but your experience may vary depending on the route you take. We were moving for just over 3.5 hours, and the whole thing took about 4 hours in total. I'm rating this hike moderate, as 15 kilometers is quite long for some, and 600 plus meters of elevation gain is more than a casual walk in the woods. We really enjoyed the views and being out in nature. The park, for the most part, is well maintained, but there is definitely some work that needs doing. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, and if you do take this trail on for yourself, please let us know in the comments how you got on. And for more content like this, subscribe and we'll do our best to keep sharing our favourite hikes with you.